In this video, we're going to examine the way that the film Unfriended makes us think about the ordinary and often overlooked ways that we are affected by our habituated use of personal computers, the internet, and social media. Particularly, we'll look at Unfriended alongside Neta Alexander's article, Rage Against the Machine, Buffering, Noise, and Perpetual Anxiety in the Age of Connected Viewing, which considers how our experience of buffering while consuming online media helps illustrate a range of issues about digital media in the 21st century. This is a way I want to relate the aesthetics of Unfriended to the media phenomenology of Unfriended, and actually say that the realism of the film is a way of getting us to media phenomenology. That the realism is not a realism of being in the world, it's a realism of using devices. So let's look at some of those ways that realism is manifested, and I'll summarize each of those points. The first one I'll talk about is the anxiety of waiting. Think about moments like these where the anxiety of talking to someone online is kind of tapped into through these forced moments of dead time. So what I love about this little moment, and I'm just thinking of the time it takes for our protagonist to feel as if the waiting that she was doing was too long, such that it warranted her question, "Are you there, Mitch?" That was merely about, say, 5, 6, 7 seconds, but in the time that we're used to when we're using computers, especially when we're multitasking, this time feels interminable, and it does seem to justify a question of, "Are you still there?" Right? The sense of instantaneity, which is expected not only of how quickly our web browser gets from one page to another, but also it's applied to individuals that we're speaking to, a sense of instantaneity. And so it's very interesting that that was a chosen thing to put into this computer, or rather into the story here. Notice that as soon as he's not calling, she starts to try another mode of communication. That she can't simply wait. She has to do something. When you think about the drama or the event that's unfolding here, it's incredibly banal. The event is merely that Mitch isn't there, and it's making her, our protagonist, not necessarily scared, but just kind of like bored. And of course, it's interrupted by a group call. So you might think that this is, say, strange storytelling, but it's actually storytelling that aspires to a kind of realism, right? It's putting mistakes or contingencies or minor anxieties into the world of the film. And this should make us think about the idea of waiting, right? That is so important to Neta Alexander's study of buffering. So she'll say, while the streaming revolution is based on the promise of on-demand liveness, buffering creates a phenomenological mode of waiting. Because of the unpredictable length of buffering, users' reactions involve a choice between excessive activity and excessive passivity. On the one hand, they may be restless, trying to use the suspended time to increase their productivity and atone for the sin of mindless binge watching by cramming in as many chores as possible, writing emails, etc. On the other hand, they may be helpless to the point of paralysis. So here we're not talking about binge watching, but we are talking about the generalized idea that everything that we do on a computer needs to be instantaneous, even the ones that involve human subjects, say talking to your boyfriend, Mitch. And I think that's really nicely captured in this film. A similar kind of anxiety, if everything needs to be instant in computer use, there's also the sense that things need to be actionable or clickable or doable. And the very kind of hidden anxiety of what happens when things aren't actionable or clickable is hinted at throughout this film in moments like this one. What I love about this is, of course, even before the character clicks, there is, I think, a palpable anxiety to seeing the kind of grayed uh, text of the unfriend button. There's an anxiety that, well, you know, what this signifies to us without us realizing it, of course, is this means that it's not actionable, it's unclickable. And when you have that, something is deeply wrong. And it's interesting, of course, that she decides to click it a few times and gets that that sound that I think hurts our brains because it tells us that something isn't functioning, right? The major kind of phenomenological mode of occupying computers, which is a series of actions, seamless actions, is interrupted. Neta Alexander will nicely kind of talk about this feeling as having to do with the illusion of choice. So this illusion of choice in computer use is partly based on and sustained by the difference between the limited options offered by the design and function of the remote control and the endless plasticity of the touchscreen or the mouse cursor, which opened the door to the world of a new political and libidinal economy of constant movement. The irony is that while the choices seem limitless, viewers often find themselves obsessively refreshing the same web page or news feed as the only solution for moments of boredom, breakdown, or failure. In other words, she's trying to say that one of the experiences that is dominant across computer use, especially when it comes to internet use, is this sense of having a maximum amount of choice, that I can always decide not only to stop the thing that I'm doing, but to do something else. But these particular moments, we get obsessed with, say, re-clicking the thing, refreshing the page, simply waiting and getting mad. When something like buffering happens, right? This is, of course, not an instance of buffering, but is an instance of everyday failure that encourages us to wait. Another kind of failure that the film brings up is this idea that we respond frantically to failure, which is nicely encapsulated by a more active and horrific part of the film.
Jess, you want to play the game?
Okay, the thing?
What is it?
It's just a game. We're just all going to download it and play it, right? I'm not doing anything, man. I just wanted to play a game. You like games? You seem to like games, dude. I thought we were going to play. I'm a fucking great game for you, man. Okay, you guys got it? Yeah. Okay, just launch it.
You'll also notice, just a small side bit, just to pay attention to the artistry of the film, that the BitTorrent that was playing in the background is now given a little bit more of a view. And the anxiety of downloading infected media content is going to be played upon here and foreshadowed by the exposure of the BitTorrent screen. And you'll see that in just a moment.
Is it searching, guys? Did everybody download it?
Mike got something. Mike got something.
Okay, good. Wait till everybody got something. Is it flagging? Has everybody got some flags? It should be more than one, too. It should be multiple.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
Okay, trash all of those and then empty your recycling bins.
I also want to point your attention to the overlapping between the intensity of action that's happening and the number of disparate spaces you're encouraged to look at. That the chaos of attention manifested in how the screen is designed reflects the chaos of activity that's happening, right? That we have this main bit of action, which is downloading this Trojan that supposedly will kill the ghost. The director of that action is manifested here. Then we have the other part of the call, which is going to hop between different characters. And then of course, we have little pop-ups that are happening on the right side of the screen. We have the downloadable object here. So I just want to point your attention to that. But I want to actually see how this plays out in real time.
Everything, that's fine. Just fucking listen to me.
So this is one of the more brilliant aspects of the film, which is that it really taps into the anxiety. This very familiar notification on computers that something can't be thrown away because the item is in use. The idea that things are happening on our computers that we don't know about. Of course, this manifests a palpable anxiety about viruses doing things while we don't know about them. And it also taps into the anxiety of downloading media illegally, what's done here with the torrent program, right? But it's just wonderful way in which the anxiety of the supernatural in this film is tied up with the anxiety of ordinary computer failure. And of course, there's something laughable at this moment when she screams, it's a pinwheel. But also, there's something very familiar about the fact that things aren't working, and she's responding by frantically moving her pinwheel cursor, and of kind of proclaiming the fact that it's a pinwheel manifests the anxiety that the cursor, which is her device of control and manifesting the illusion of choice, has now been replaced with this device that is not actionable. That's one of the many anxiety-producing things about the pinwheel as a unique kind of buffering symbol, that it takes away the thing that we use to manifest control over our virtual spaces and simply signals the fact that things are processing, things that we cannot see or understand. So she'll say the length of buffering is always unpredictable, which explains why users tend to react to its appearance by switching between excessive passivity, staring at the screen, freezing in their chairs, and excessive activity, texting, multitasking. It can thus be considered simultaneously a distraction and a unique form of concentrated attention. And I think this sequence gives us the latter, excessive activity. Just because of not only how much the screen was cluttered with different things to focus on, but the fact that our protagonist was waving around her cursor frantically in a mode that she would probably understand as not having any actionable effect on the problem that she was encountering. And now I want to take a moment to just reflect upon the language of failure that we use to talk about computer use. And to think about these two terms, which I've been using interchangeably, but now I kind of want to reflect upon what those words mean. That is the difference between glitch and failure. And glitch is a word that has been used in this film. And I want to think about what that means in terms of how they use the term that reflects our ordinary use of it. So moments like this, it's just probably a glitch. When someone says, how do we know that? Mitch saying, I don't think this is a glitch. Well, what do they mean when they say, I don't think this is a glitch? A glitch, based on their use of the term, is something that we shouldn't be afraid of, right? A glitch is a kind of error in a system, but an error that is something that we expect, an error that is built into the normal functioning of a system. And this is something that's actually been talked about a lot in new media discourse. Particularly by a couple media theorists, Rosa Mankman and Hugh Mannon and Daniel Temkin. And I'm not going to give you the text, but these are just major works of looking at glitches in new media theory. So Hugh Mannon and Daniel Temkin say a glitch is a program's failure to fully fail upon encountering bad data. That is, it's not the same thing as failure. It's a failure to fully fail. It manifests a problem that keeps things, but it still keeps going. Rosa Mankman will say, failure is a phenomenon to overcome, while glitch is incorporated further into technological or interpretive process. In other words, glitch is part of the ordinary functioning of a device, often a digital device. So you'll get these lines of dialogue that reflect the ways in which ordinary glitches are part of what we understand the functionality of digital technology to be. Dude, weird computer shit happens to me all the time. Something like this, what is it? I think it's frozen. And its frozenness is not necessarily a failure, but a temporary glitch that they are just waiting to be fixed. It's one of the terrifying parts. It's like, is this person like frozen dead, or is the screen frozen, right? And of course, the film will make great use of this ambiguity. Ken, you said it was just a glitch. Well, the glitch just typed, right? That is to say, if it were just a glitch, it would be fine. What happens when the glitch is doing something to suggest that it's not really part of ordinary functionality, that is in fact a failure, or worse, a supernatural takeover of an ordinary computing system. So Neta Alexander will say, computer software is designed in a way that shadows the hidden workings instead of underlying assumptions on which it is based. This creates a set of visceral, emotional, and even existential anxieties that are mostly ignored. In other words, what's really important to understand about the nature of glitches and the nature of software is that when things break down, we are given a glimpse that something is going wrong, but that glimpse is not a, say, clear and unambiguous translation of the actual problem. In fact, most of us have no idea how these things are functioning. It's a kind of a black box, right? We're only given the graphical user interface. We don't really know the underlying processes. That's one of the reasons that buffering is so anxiety producing, that it tells us that things are working, but we don't actually know what that working entails. We're just simply told to wait while things beneath the surface of a graphical user interface are happening. And she'll further elaborate on this point and say the digital apparatus is a supposedly unbreakable system that perpetually breaks. It's a nice way of defining the glitch. Paradoxically, it never breaks down simply because it breaks down all the time for different users in different moments. A great way to understand one of the main anxieties that's being explored in this film. And I just want to point you to one of the ubiquitous kinds of glitches that you might not even think about as you watch this film, which is, of course, compression glitches. Compression glitches are those things that happen when you're, say, on your VLC media player and you make it 3 times speed, or you scrub too fast, or you download a torrent file, but you download it to 75% and play it anyway. You'll see this kind of bleeding pixel effect, which, of course, has been used deliberately by glitch artists like Takeshi Murata in this film called Monster Movie. Now, you might understand why someone might want to use compression glitches, because they do these really interesting aesthetic things to video images, right? They can give us colorful, seemingly abstract, almost deliberately designed, or what seems like a deliberately designed kind of abstraction. And of course, a lot of you will probably remember the ways in which this has been co-opted by popular culture. Kanye West famously used this effect in his video for the song Welcome to Heartbreak. And there's a few other ways in, that popular culture has used this, but it's kind of has faded in the last 10 years. But it's important to just keep in mind that glitch art is a thing, right? And what's the importance of glitch art? Well, what glitch art is doing is a kind of apparatus breaking, right? And remember that this course, when we looked at apparatus theory, is all about highlighting the way in which the apparatus hides its processes. It hides its conventions. It hides its workings to create an illusion of seamless realism. So Beaudry has this moment where he imagines that the breakdown of the system is like this revelation of the truth of the apparatus that must be suppressed by the proper functioning of the apparatus. He'll say, we should remember, moreover, the disturbing effects which result during a projection from breakdowns in the recreation of movement, when the spectator is brought abruptly back to discontinuity, that is, to the body, to the technical apparatus which he had forgotten. So if you've seen a film projected on camera, or say a film projected break down, you start to see that a film, or you start to see the truth of the 24 frames that are suppressed by the illusion of continuity. But avant-garde filmmakers will find ways to break films as a gesture of, say, revelation, of revealing the hidden material nature of film. And we talked about this earlier in the course. Now, what a film like Unfriended is doing is, of course, not doing avant-garde art. It is a narrative film. It is a film with many horror conventions. It's a slasher film. However, it does allow itself to break the image and to give us representations of technological breakage or failure that is in many ways consistent with the avant-garde. And in fact, it actually uses these glitch breakdowns to manifest a kind of horrific image, right? If I just took this moment, there is a horrifying nature to the image that seems to come out simply because the context of this film's ordinary compression glitches is in fact a horrific supernatural event. So in many ways, it does defamiliarize the ordinary glitches that we encounter every day, but don't give much thought to. right? So you could say, in thinking about the kind of main topic of our discussion today, that is film theory meets media theory, that a film like Unfriended, despite being having a low aesthetic and not a kind of artistically privileged avant-garde aesthetic, is in fact making us confront through aesthetic encounters these truths about media that are part and parcel of media theory. That a medium is an extension of ourselves, that the medium is the message, that media determine our situation, and that what it means to be human is wrapped up in the use of tools, techniques, and media. That the film somehow gets us to think about these things without announcing itself as a film that is going to, say, break the ordinary functioning of cinema, right? And in fact, those of you who are fans of horror know that horror films are one of the genres that kind of have the most flexibility with representational aesthetics, right? They can really be the closest to the avant-garde in the classical genres.